Welcome back to the Kaiser Report. Time now to turn to Barb Jacobson, one of the organizers of the European Citizens Initiative for Unconditional Basic Income. Barb, welcome to the Kaiser Report.
Thank you, Max. It's great to be here.
All right, so Barb Jacobson, unconditional basic income. What is it?
Well, unconditional basic income is a regular payment made to everybody unconditionally, and that's it.
Okay. Now, this has been in the news recently because Switzerland has put this forward, and they're suggesting that all citizens get unconditional income. They get a monthly income, and there's been a lot of talk about it. So can you just give us an update of what exactly is Switzerland proposing?
Well, what Switzerland is proposing is quite a high basic income of around $1,500, something like that a month, for anybody to spend on their life.
Now, I'll tell you why this is an interesting topic for us here on the Kaiser Report. Because we have this opinion that banks get an unconditional income in the form of quantitative easing. So there's a class in the industrialized world of bankers and their friends who, in the case of in the United States, they get $85 billion a month from Ben Bernanke. In unconditional income.
Yes.
They just stuff money into their pockets, and they do no work for this. There's another program where homeowners are involved in home equity lines of credit. They're extracting money from their home based on this quantitative easing. Once again, they're getting free money, a free income from the government. They're not working for this money. Okay, so why should it then be such a leap of imagination, either for people who are not necessarily in the pockets of the bankers? Why shouldn't they also get some income?
Well, indeed, this is what we think. And the thing is, I think, you see all the money behind us. It's not going out to the people. I mean, there are people saying, well, we should have QE for the people, actually, rather than QE for the banks all the time, or QE for wars, for example. There are a lot of things that happen which we'd really rather not see happening, as well as the fact that people just need the money. I mean, it came out today, I don't know if you heard the figure, but the GMB came out with the fact that the wages are going down, have been going down the last 5 years, have gone down by 20%. Right,
so in the banking world, of course, the escalation of this free money is from inflation. They just print the money, and they take the money. Right. So in the basic income world, it comes from where?
Well, the Citizens Income Trust has worked out how to do it from from the current tax base. There are a lot of other ideas about using land value taxation, or the financial transaction tax, or even VAT to give people a basic income.
But I want to get back to this idea of the fact that you've got one group in society getting this free income versus another group which is being asked to accept austerity.
Yeah, well, like the artist taxi driver says, this isn't a recession, this is a robbery. And as the cuts kick in, as the Social Security system here is made increasingly conditional, and you get this kind of Sado-sanction thing going on with workfare and the ESA and with ATOS, it's really pushed a lot of us to be saying, well, actually, why don't we just get rid of all of the conditions on welfare and make it emancipatory? Make it something that people can just rely on and live their lives. I mean, you know yourself, I mean, all the music that came out of this country between the 60s and the 90s, most of those people started out on the dole.
Well, it kind of opens up another idea where in a lot of countries, in Ireland, for example, there's folks who are artists are on kind of encouraged by the state because there is some residual and ancillary benefits to this. As you point out, there's an entire industries that can be created with the time available to folks who are going to then come up with new ideas and new thoughts. I wanted to kind of turn this around a little bit. For example, and look at this in a different way. So let's say that we know that the economy here in the UK is a managed economy. It's a centralized economy. It's run by the market policy committee, essentially, of the banking committee. And there's very little really free markets. What if the economy were suddenly opened up and it was a free market economy? So interest rates would trade as if they were determined by the market. Not by the central bankers. And wages were actually allowed to rise in terms of the true demand, let's say. would there be a need for of a basic income that you're talking about? So would it be a need for this in that scenario? Can you just talk on that a little bit?
Well, I think it would be. There would be a need for it. I mean, the thing is with basic income, it's an actually very, very old idea. People started talking about it as early as the 1500s when the enclosures started, and people were taken off the land and were unable to use the land as a common resource and for subsistence. And we're seeing a kind of similar thing here with the kind of wealth extraction that's going on from whether it's the closure of industry or whether it's the cuts or whatever. And, you know, say if you did have what you talk about in terms of a free market economy, you still wouldn't have actually a free labor force. And what basic income does is actually free up the labor force to say, right, well, this work is worth doing and I want to do it, and this work isn't.
Barb Jacobson, let me ask, so what do you think could be some of the ways to push this agenda forward? Obviously, Switzerland, I guess we're saying is...
Well, Switzerland they're going to actually do a popular referendum. So the whole country will be asked, do you want a basic income? This is how much it is. The EU initiative is, it's a mechanism that was about the only good thing that came out of the Lisbon Agreement. And it gives EU citizens the right to tell the EC what to do. If you get 1 million signatures, that's what we're doing. Unfortunately, we couldn't ask for a basic income flat out. We had to ask the EC to look at the question. And so our initiative, which is the European Commission, we're asking them to just look at the question, do pilot studies, do some research into it. If you look at the research into basic income in other parts of the world, health outcomes rise, kids stay in education, nutrition gets better. It's a really good way of helping the poorest. Even though it goes to everybody, it actually helps the poorest the most. And that's why we're advocating.
So in the absence of a political effort to go in this direction, what are some of the non-political ways that pressure can be applied? For example, we had just a couple of years ago with the Occupy Wall Street movement, you know, there's a lot of talk about challenging the system as it is currently. Not a lot of solutions or ideas were put forward, a lot of discussion. And I know personally, I think that if you look at some of the things happening in alternative finance, it seems like it's getting at this idea. For example, in the area of crowdfunding, there's crowdfunding energy platforms where people are putting up small amounts of money to invest in renewable energy, where they're getting a dividend based on the dividend of the renewable energy that's coming. That's a basic income from them, coming from the sun. So if the sun hits the solar panels, it drives energy use and consumption and economics of energy, of which they then get a part of that. It's like they're getting a basic income from the sun. And there's a couple of companies here in the UK that are involved in this renewable energy crowdfunding platform, which seems like a remarkable development. They're using technology, using finance. So that would seem like a great way to go forward with this idea if the governments are going to drag their feet.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Have you spoken to Dimitri Kleiner recently?
Who is? Tell us about Dimitri.
He's writer of the Telecommunist Manifesto and calls himself a venture communist, and he talks about that in terms of doing mutuals.
Okay, now the word communist, when you throw it into the mix, it immediately sets off alarm bells.
A lot of alarm bells,
because we're not talking about necessarily, let's say, Soviet-era communism.
No, not at all. No.
You know, which is what most people will think of, or Marxism.
No, that's the thing. I mean, when this has been piloted.
I'm looking at that red sweater now, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, what's going on here? They've got to call me. No, it's not. We have. There's a middle ground here between, let's call it capitalism and communism. In other words, what I just described about this crowdfunded platform that would give people energy from the sun, that you could see echoes of that in the Communist Manifesto, but you can also understand how that relates to the red meat eating capitalism in society in terms of putting together efficiency, technology efficiencies, and the meritocracy that comes with developing the technology behind it. And there would be winners and losers on the technology side. So there's very much a mix.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, yes, there should be winners and losers on the technology side. We should have the time and the resources to explore all these different options, whether it's local currencies or the electronic currencies you're into, or new ways of exploiting energy, or I mean, there's all these different. There are all these different. You're going to tell me how to push.
No,
it
I'm saying, Barb, if you wanted to get a mass movement behind this, why isn't there something better way to brand it, to use a crass term like this, than dip into the communism bucket of paint? I mean, isn't there a better way to push this? Something
yeah, well, I mean, some people call it a citizen's dividend, or you have a social dividend. I mean, there's a very old idea from C.H. Douglas was a social dividend. Some people are calling it a citizen's dividend. I mean, if you think of us, of human beings, we all have a stock in the planet, and this would be actually a good way to support people in living while they figure out good ways to sort of deal with these different problems and as you say, possibly compete with them, or just be able to live, and withdraw that money.
Okay, I think we've gotten somewhere here. So the social dividend hints at the fact that it's not about just giving people money.
No,
it's about re-architecting the economy.
Absolutely, because there's so much that the market doesn't pay for. I'm so sick of hearing people talk about the self-made person, self-made man, usually, and you just wonder, well, all right, so who changed his nappies? You know, nobody is.
Well,
at the end of the day, you know, nobody starts out alone. No, you know, everybody has some kind of support, and even if it's inadequate support, you can talk about, you know, a lot of different things about that. But well,
let's roll back for a second before we got to the nappies.
Okay.
In other words, the economy it can be re-architected in a way where risks and rewards are more equally balanced.
Yeah.
And income can flow in ways that are more equitable without destroying capitalism per se, because you still have a competitive aspect to it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, some people say this is going to save capitalism, basic income, that is. Other people say that it will eventually let it wind down into something fair. I don't know. Okay?
All right, we got to go. I think we're agreeing that the term social dividends is a good...
Social dividend is a good one.
Is a good place.
Citizens dividend is a good one. It's just to sort of think that this is our share of the economy. And I really want people to sign this year. In fact, you only have 14 days to do it. Basic-income2013.eu. It's take a step into the future with basic income.
Fair enough.
Okay.
We're out of time. Thanks for being on the Kaiser Report.
Thank you, Max.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the Kaiser Report with me, Max Kaiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Barb Jacobson of the European Citizens Initiative for Unconditional Basic Income. If you'd like to get in touch, tweet us at Kaiser Report. Until next time, Happy New Year, and bye, y'all.